Hey everybody, insert number 2 for Come Follow Me this week. We're in Matthew verses 5 to 13, but you'll also find the story in Luke 7, 1 to 10. I just picked the Matthew version of this story, but do read both of them if you want to study this one. Well, I would encourage you to read both of them. It's going to give you a depth of understanding, but the Matthew one sort of gives a little more information, but then Luke also gives information that's not in the Matthew one. Again, why you need more than one account to really help get a more 3D picture of what's happening here. So my question for you for this, before we get into it, is do you stand out because of your faith? Because this is what happens here. So I'm not going to read all the verses, but let's just go through them. So Jesus goes down to Capernaum, and there's a centurion that comes to him, pleading with him, Lord, Jesus, please, there's a servant that I have who's sick of the palsy, which could be a number of things in those days, different to what we have now, but no doubt the man is dying. He's really ill. It just says he's grievously tormented, which just sounds awful, doesn't it? Jesus says unto him, I'll come and heal him. Of course I'll come and heal him. You asked me to, of course I'll come and do it. See, he wants us to go heal him. You look at inside number 1. He wants to heal us. But the centurion says to him, but Lord, I'm not worthy. You can't come into my home. I don't feel right with you under my roof because of who I am. But I know I have great faith in that if you just speak it, my servant will be healed. You see, because I'm a Roman soldier, captain, general person. What are they? A centurion. I'm a Roman centurion. I have soldiers under me, and I tell them what to go and do. And some of the things that Rome gets me to go and tell them to go and do are not things that are in keeping with your gospel and your teachings. And when Jesus heard this, he's saying, but I know that you're right, and I know this. Now, if you go and read the Luke version, it actually tells that the centurion actually built the servants in his care a synagogue for them to practice religion. So this guy he's like a Roman who's being told what to do by Rome, who was ruling the area at the time, and yet he was incredibly kind to the people under him. While they might have been his slaves or servants, he treated them as family, and he had respect for what they needed, and genuinely concerned with the servant who was sick, not just because he was a good servant. They could have been easily replaced, but because he cared about people, and he had faith that all Christ had to do was say he's healed and that it would happen. So it's just lovely. But he says, look, I'm not worthy of you to be in my home. I recognize who you are and what you do, and you're not. I've had that experience, and I'll come back to that. I'll tell you briefly what happened there. But in verse 10 of chapter 8 of Matthew, it says, when Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to them that followed, verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. As in, this is Gentile faith. And this centurion knows who I am. He has faith in me more than my own people. And that's sad. But there you go. And he said that, a lot of them that come and sit down, and they sit with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, but they'll get cast out. And he says basically saying, there's a lot of people that say they believe in me, but then there's those that actually do. And then in 13, Jesus said to the centurion, go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so it be done unto thee. And his servant was healed in the selfsame hour. Now, if you read the account in Luke, it'll tell you it slightly differently. It's probably both, so it just gives you this, as I said, better 3D picture of it. But have you ever desired help for yourself or another, yet felt unworthy to ask? Because this is what the centurion was feeling. He was feeling that unworthiness to ask, that unworthiness to come into my home and heal this person, because my home is not a place that is in keeping with your gospel. That's what he's saying to Christ. So this centurion was kind to those around him when his country demanded he be the enemy. Although he sought help and healing for his servant, he himself had great faith. In a world where Jesus was an enemy of the state, because he was, this centurion knew otherwise. He stood out because of his great faith. And how can we do this better? Now, my experience that I said there was back when I was flatting many years ago, a ton of years ago. I was living with two girls who We all had our own rooms, but they decided to be kind of anti-Christ behavior and really go against church things. And they were church people, maybe not the strongest, definitely not the strongest, but still good people, like really nice people. But they had just gone on a bit bender, and there was a mess in the house from the party that they'd had while I'd stayed in my room. Although at that time I had partied with them a number of times, so it's okay. But I was trying to be better. I was trying to change my life at this point, and for some reason, I don't know, the missionaries decided to come around and visit that night, and they knocked on the door and I opened it, and I knew these two were in the kitchen, and they were like sort of hungover and drunk, and the place reeked of cigarette smoke, and there was alcohol spilled on the carpet. It all needed cleaning up, and it was just a mess. It was gross. And I just said to the elders, no, don't come in. It's not a good environment for you to be in. So I kind of get why the centurion was saying that, like, while he was trying to be the best person he could be, like I was trying to be that best person, because of what his job and his country demanded of him, he didn't have that worthy home to invite the Lord into. And so when I read this, I think back to that moment and think, I've never refused missionaries access to my home, ever. Even if they've been from a different church. If somebody knocks on my door and needs help or wants to give me a message from God, I'll listen. It doesn't mean to say I'm going to agree with all of it or even take all of it in, but I will still listen. And if you need to use the bathroom or get a drink of water, then of course I'll help you. But in this instance, I had to turn them away. So I feel a similarity to the story for me. And this is how it rang true for me, and how the centurion would have felt. He knew Christ was absolutely true, and he wanted to be able to invite him into his home, but his home was not that, because of the things that had gone on in his home that maybe he wasn't responsible for. It was probably a post where he was told to live. It's not something that he would have set up himself. So it's sort of, there's a parallel there for me. I don't know if you feel that in any way or if you've had experience with that, but how it feels to not stand out because of your faith, and then at times also stand out because of your faith, but maybe not in the way you would like. So we can all do better at standing out because of our faith and making it a positive thing. I think in that moment I probably stood out because of my faith, and that I knew it wasn't safe for the missionaries. And I'm sure the missionaries have been into lots, those particular two, probably been into lots of environments and houses in that area that weren't that nice. When they knocked on the door and they would have gone, oh yeah, come on in, and there's gang houses and drug houses, and they were still kindly to the missionaries because that's just what we do around here. But still not really appropriate. And I think I was trying to keep them safe from that as much as I could, because I too absolutely know Christ is true, and these are messengers of Christ trying to do their best. They're human, they make mistakes, absolutely, but to keep them safe like I would anybody else that had knocked on the door. Even like if our bishop had knocked on the door, I would have said no, not right now, because like he doesn't need to be in that environment. And our bishop at that time was literally law enforcement, drug control, so totally been in worse situations. But it's just that actually this place isn't a place of Christ right now, and so I always wanted that back in my home. So I've endeavored since that point to have my home be a place of Christ. Whether it's completely that or not, I don't know, but I'm trying. Anyway, Elder Holland said, first and forever, fan the flame of your faith, because all things are possible to them that believe. And I really like that. So first and forever, fan the flame of your faith. That's a lot of F's. First and forever, fan the flame of your faith, because all things are possible to them that believe. And I believed, and I got the home where Christ is central, and I stand out because of my faith. And probably for some people it's uncomfortable, but for most people that I encounter, they really enjoy it, because I'm not forcing it on them. I'm just standing out because of how I am. Yeah, so maybe try and look at that. So do you stand out like the centurion did because of his faith? Do you have that great faith? Something to think about, right? All right, hang around. We're going to cover verses 24 to 27 because there's some good stuff here.